We're often told that we live in a meritocracy, where people's successes and failures are direct consequences of their own skill, imagination, and hard work. Now, that blatantly isn't true. Otherwise, mothers in the global south who carry water for miles to nourish their children would all be millionaires, Prince Andrew wouldn't live in this great big palace, and I would have more subscribers than PewDiePie. If there is one area of life that does best resemble a meritocracy though, albeit still not entirely, it would surely be the world of sport, and football more so than most. If you are good enough at football, work hard, and avoid any disastrous injuries, you will eventually make it to the top. Few other industries provide such emphatic social mobility for a small number of people as football does. But is it always the case that the best footballers earn the most money? Sunderland fans who were saddled with the extortionate wages of Jack Rodwell for a total of 4 years might suggest that it is not. In today's video, I'm taking a look at, reportedly, the highest earner at every Premier League team and attempting to rank them from worst to first, so to speak. In the case of 2 or more players earning the same salary at a club, which isn't that uncommon, I will name all players but will only rank the one with the largest appearance fee. If 2 or more players' salaries and bonuses are all identical, which I think is the case with just 2 clubs, then I will simply pick the player who I think is the best. It must be said, just before I begin, that this is the hardest ranked list that I've ever had to make, with very little to split 6, 7, maybe even 8 players, and therefore I predict some strong disagreements and debates to ensue down in the comments, which is entirely understandable. It was tough, but I did my best. Here is how I would rank every Premier League team's reported highest earner. 20th, Norwich City, Milo Rashica. It seems very simple to pick out the worst ranked team in the Premier League at this moment in time, Norwich City, and say that their highest earner is the worst top earner in the division. But it wasn't simple at all. Whilst Milo Rashica is yet to really get going at Carrow Road this season, in what has been a really tricky start for the Canaries, he is nonetheless a real talent. Excellent at Werder Bremen during the 2018-19 and 2019-20 seasons, Rashica is the Kosovo national team star man due to his explosive acceleration and danger in the final third. He joined Norwich for a potential €15 million in the summer, which could become a club record fee, and he was handed a 4-year deal reportedly worth £40,000 a week, plus a £20,000 appearance fee and a £20,000 goal bonus. There are actually 8 players in Norwich City: Max Aarons, Todd Cantwell, Grant Hanley, Ben Gibson, Timu Pukki, Dimitris Giannoulis, Tim Krul, and of course Milo Rashica, all said to be tied on £40,000 a week. But it is his £20,000 a week appearance fee that clinches it for Rashica. He gets us started very early on in his Premier League career, but there is no shame in that, still aged only 25. 19th, Brighton and Hove Albion, Adam Lallana. 2 Brighton and Hove Albion players are reported to earn £67,000 a week, namely Lewis Dunk and Adam Lallana, and it would be fair to say that if Dunk had the higher bonuses, he would have featured a little higher in this list. That is no slight against Adam Lallana, who is a wonderful footballer, but the former Southampton captain has been blighted by injuries for the best part of 4 years now. He did manage to make 30 appearances last season, his first back on the south coast, despite picking up 4 separate groin injuries, and he has started 10 games in the Premier League this season, with the Seagulls flying high in 7th place at the time of this recording. Lallana is a player who is really easy on the eye, given his touch, technique and control, whilst being a little toothless in front of goal. He takes 19th only because of injuries and the strength of this list, and if he can continue on this run of games and get closer to his former best, he may well leapfrog a few as well. 18th, Leeds United, RODRIGO. As I mentioned in a video quite recently, the case of RODRIGO at Leeds United is a slightly strange one. Brought in for a club record £27 million following promotion to the Premier League, despite the fact that he was already on the verge of turning 30, it seemed as though RODRIGO would become Marcelo Bielsa's main man up top. However, the Argentine gave Patrick Bamford the nod at the start of the season, and Bamford, in turn, has since given him very little reason to drop him. That has left RODRIGO in a bit of an awkward position. quite literally at times, as he has often been played out of position in midfield where he can look a little lost. That is not necessarily his fault, and Rodrigo is still a very gifted, hard-working, and intelligent footballer, whose reported £100,000 a week wages make him the highest earner, other than Marcelo Bielsa, at Leeds United, and the second highest earning Rodrigo in the Premier League. 17th, Brentford, Christopher AJER. As with a handful of recent summer signings in this list, it is still early days for Christopher AJER at Brentford, but the Bees are a team that take great care when it comes to allocating capital. The fact that they smashed their transfer record then over the summer in order to bring AJER to West London in a £13.5 million deal from Celtic speaks volumes. Ask any Celtic fan and they will tell you what AJER is all about. A born leader who plays with a sense of know-how well beyond his tender years. Whether it be physically, mentally or technically, the Norwegian has all the tools to become a complete modern-day centre-back, still aged only 23. AJER is very comfortable playing in defensive or even central midfield, but was converted to centre-back due to his height, standing at a whopping 6'6" tall. With a reported wage of £35,000 a week, AJER is the lowest, highest earner at any club in the Premier League, if you can follow that sentence. And he is further evidence of the fantastic management and recruitment at the Brentford Community Stadium. 16th, Watford, Ismaila Sarr. Watford's record signing and one of the star men in the Championship last season, given that Ismaila Sarr joined the Hornets for £40 million from Rennes, following interest from both Liverpool and Manchester United, it is of little surprise that he is said to be the highest earner at Vicarage Road. Sarr supposedly earns £70,000 a week, which is actually the same as Andre Gray's reported weekly wage, but Watford only pay around 60% of Gray's wages, with the striker currently on loan at Queen's Park Rangers in the Championship. Sarr is very much still a key man in Claudio Ranieri's side, with 4 goals in 11 games so far this season, and he will be pivotal to the Hornets' survival hopes this term. 15th, Burnley, James Tarkowski. Burnley quartet, James Tarkowski, Ben Mee, Dwight McNeil and Chris Wood, are all said to have contracts worth £70,000 a week. Meanwhile, Tarkowski and Mee have identical contracts, even both ending in 2022, which will be a concern for the Clarets, and which means that it is impossible to separate them. I went with Tarkowski because I think that defensively he is slightly superior to Mee, though both are absolutely rock-solid Premier League centre-backs. Burnley slapped a £35 million asking price on Tarkowski's head ahead of the upcoming January transfer window, amid interest from West Ham and Newcastle, essentially trying to say that he is not for sale. West Ham are said to be the 28-year-old's preferred destination, but there is no doubt that it is a risky strategy that the Clarets are pursuing, with Tarkowski out of contract and able to leave on a free at the end of this season. 14th, Newcastle United, Allan Saint-Maximin. Well, I said this list was the toughest ranked list that I'd ever made, and few players presented a bigger dilemma than Allan Saint-Maximin. Unplayable and unstoppable at his best, the Frenchman has quick feet, quick legs, and is so unpredictable on the ball that, at times, it seems as though even he isn't quite sure what he is going to do next. Saint-Maximin signed a new deal at Newcastle just over a year ago, keeping him contracted to the club until 2026, and supposedly handing him wages of £90,000 a week. That is the same as Callum Wilson's reported weekly wage, but Saint-Maximin is believed to have a slightly higher appearance fee. Still aged only 24, if Saint-Maximin can become more decisive in the final third, he could be among the most devastating players in the division. But right now, in the here and now, and after much deliberation, I decided to put him in 14th. 13th, Crystal Palace, WILFRIED ZAHA. Illustrating the strength of this list, WILFRIED ZAHA doesn't manage to crack my top 10. The Ivorian international is both Crystal Palace's star man and their highest earner, said to be earning some £130,000 a week. Zaha has certainly earned that in previous years, playing a pivotal role in keeping Palace in the Premier League, and he has made a strong start to life under Patrick Vieira this season. 12th, Wolves, RAUL Jimenez. After almost an entire season out injured, following a skull fracture that he sustained against Arsenal, Raul Jimenez is back in action for Wolves this season. Although the Mexican has only managed 2 goals in 10 games at the time of recording, that doesn't really tell the full story of his return. Aside from also having provided a couple of assists, it is Jimenez's presence up top, providing a focal point for Wolves that they missed so desperately last season. Jimenez is a fantastic athlete with a brilliant work rate, as well as being possibly the most lethal penalty taker in the Premier League. His reported £100,000 a week wages put him level with João Moutinho at Molineux, but it is once again his superior supposed appearance fee that gives him the nod. 11th, Everton, Luca Digne. The only fullback who is currently the highest earner at a Premier League club, Luca Digne's reported £125,000 a week wages reflect his importance to Everton, even from left back. A brilliant attacking fullback who possesses some of the best left-footed deliveries into the box in the entire division, Digne is, somewhat surprisingly, yet to provide an assist in the Premier League this season. But that is just an early season anomaly in relation to his accomplishments in previous seasons. I found Digne tough to rank, if I'm totally honest, since I think strong arguments could be made that Wilfried Zaha and Raul Jimenez are better players, for example, but equally that some of the players ahead of the Frenchman in this list perhaps aren't as good in their respective positions as Digne is at left back. Ultimately, 11th just seemed to be about right. 10th, Southampton, James Ward-Prowse. I am a huge fan of James Ward-Prowse, and the Southampton captain deservedly kickstarts our top 10. Born in Portsmouth, but a Southampton player since the age of 8, Ward-Prowse has made over 300 appearances at St Mary's, gradually becoming the most important player at the club. Now he holds that title with very little competition. That is not doing a disservice to his teammates, just a compliment of how good he is, and his pay packet rather reflects that fact. Ward-Prowse signed a new deal with the Saints over the summer, said to be worth some £26 million, before bonuses. Or, in other words, £100,000 a week. 9th, West Ham, Kurt Zouma. Another placement that I suspect may be somewhat controversial. I am well aware that I hold Kurt Zouma in higher esteem than most. To be honest, I think the Frenchman was extremely unfortunate to find himself competing with a string of excellent centre-backs at Stamford Bridge, and even then, I think he is absolutely good enough to be playing for a team competing for the biggest trophies, just as Chelsea are. At £29.8 million, Zouma didn't come cheap when he signed for West Ham this summer, but I still think that it'll turn out to be a sensational signing for the Hammers. Zouma's apparent £100,000 a week wages reportedly put him level with Andrei Yarmolenko as the highest earner at the London Stadium, but Zouma's £20,000 appearance fee is enough to ensure that he was West Ham's entrant, and a stronger entrant, I think it would be fair to say, at that. 8th, Aston Villa, Danny Ings. Clearly, it has been a difficult start to the season for Aston Villa, who find themselves in 16th place at the time of this recording, having won just 3 games, and with Dean Smith already having been replaced by Steven Gerrard. One of Smith's primary challenges this season, ultimately leading to his dismissal, was the quandary of how to accommodate Villa's raft of new attacking talent, not least Danny Ings. Consequently, the Englishman has only scored 3 goals in 9 games so far this season, but you wouldn't bet against him coming alive under Steven Gerrard. In the season before last, Ings outscored the likes of Harry Kane and Mohamed Salah to almost win the Premier League Golden Boot. At age 29, there is absolutely no good reason why he can't return to those heights at Villa Park. 7th, Leicester City, Jamie Vardy. Speaking of Danny Ings missing out on the 2019-20 Premier League Golden Boot, there was only one player who scored more goals than him that season, and it was Jamie Vardy. That was Vardy's 3rd season hitting 20-plus goals in the Premier League, which is a very rare feat. And Vardy is the 16th highest scorer of the Premier League era, having outscored the likes of Matt Le Tissier, Steven Gerrard, and Didier Drogba in the top flight of English football. Vardy's reported £160,000 weekly wage is undoubtedly enormous, but his pace, movement, and ruthlessness in front of goal are just about invaluable to the Foxes, even at the age of 34. Vardy has scored 7 goals so far this season, once again putting him among the division's highest scorers. 6th, Arsenal, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Hopefully by this stage you can start to get an idea of why certain players in this list were quite so difficult to rank, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is another who falls firmly into that bracket. Obviously, Aubameyang is an immensely talented forward, lightning quick, intelligent, and lethal throughout most of his career. Across his first 2.5 seasons at Arsenal, the Gabon legend was among the best players in the division. Last season represented a real dip for the forward, who only managed to score 10 league goals, but following a return from injury, he has shown signs of getting back to his best in recent weeks. At his best, Aubameyang threatens to take a podium spot in this list, but as things stand, 6th seems about right for the supposed £250,000 a week Arsenal captain. 5th, Chelsea, Romelu Lukaku. I think that there is a debate to be had between Romelu Lukaku and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, certainly at their respective peaks, if Lukaku has even reached his yet, but in the here and now, I have to edge towards the Chelsea man. Lukaku returned to Stamford Bridge over the summer in a club record £97.5 million move, but following a dominant second debut for the Blues against Arsenal, the Belgian only scored in 1 of his next 6 games, and failed to score in 4 games in a row before suffering a sprained ankle. It isn't the start that Lukaku would have dreamed of back in West London, but one would be surprised if he didn't still hit 20 plus goals this season. A phenomenal goal scorer and athlete, Lukaku possesses incredible physical strength, he worked tirelessly to improve his game, and he has one of the most lethal left foots in all of world football. Upon his return to Chelsea, Lukaku supposedly became the 3rd highest paid player in the Premier League, with a reported salary of £350,000 a week, thus leapfrogging N'Golo Kante to become Chelsea's chief moneymaker. 4th, Manchester United, Cristiano Ronaldo. I have no doubt that this is going to split opinion just about as much as any other ranking, and I am often accused of downplaying the talents of Cristiano Ronaldo, despite the fact that I naturally don't think that is the case. In his last 2 seasons at Manchester United before signing for Real Madrid, a compelling case could be made for Ronaldo having been the finest player to have graced the English game during the Premier League era, if not beyond, and he reached yet new heights at Real Madrid. I don't think any of that is particularly controversial. The question is how good he is now, to which I would say the answer is very good, hence why he ranks above the likes of Lukaku and Aubameyang, just not quite as good as 3 other Premier League top earners. Ronaldo is the best paid player in the Premier League, having reportedly been handed a deal worth £480,000 a week upon his return to Old Trafford. It is worth noting that the division's 2nd highest earner, David De Gea, doesn't feature in this list by virtue of the fact that he also plays for Manchester United. I think Ronaldo is still the best pure goal scorer in the Premier League in terms of his finishing and movement, and his athleticism at the age of 36 is truly terrifying. That is enough to earn him a spot in 4th, but I don't believe he offers quite enough outside of those 2 admittedly remarkable attributes to beat the 3 men up next. 3rd, Liverpool, Virgil van Dijk. Liverpool had a very well-documented injury crisis at centre-back last season, of which Virgil van Dijk was the most notable absentee. The Dutchman transformed the Liverpool backline when he arrived at Anfield in January 2018, and he is still arguably the 2nd most important player at the club. A towering and calming colossus at the heart of Jurgen Klopp's backline, Van Dijk's composure and confidence in his own ability makes him incredibly difficult to beat in one-on-one situations. Meanwhile, his leadership skills are often vital to the organisation of the team's back 4. With a reported £240,000 a week wage, Van Dijk is the 2nd best paid person at Liverpool, behind Jurgen Klopp, and the best paid player, though one suspects that won't remain the case for long if or when Mohamed Salah, who currently earns less than the likes of Timo Werner and Anthony Martial, signs a new deal at Anfield. 2nd, Tottenham Hotspur, Harry Kane. Again, I know this one will cause a fair bit of uproar, and many people will say that there's no chance that Harry Kane is better than Cristiano Ronaldo, even when the Portuguese superstar is 36 years of age. Clearly, I disagree. Certainly, based on the early parts of this season, Kane would do well to crack my top 10, But these rankings aren't based solely on form. Kane is renowned for starting the season slowly, and whilst, admittedly, this season has started slower than most for the England captain, only a fool would bet against him coming alive under Antonio Conte. Kane scored 7 goals in 2 games for England over the international break, and regardless of the opposition, that will do his confidence a world of good. I expect that Cristiano Ronaldo will score more goals than Harry Kane this season. It would take a pretty radical downturn in Ronaldo's fortunes for that not to be the case, but in terms of their all-round game, I think that Kane offers a lot more at this respective stage in their careers. If you still don't believe me, don't forget that Manchester City only turned their attention to Cristiano Ronaldo after failing to sign Harry Kane, and it is worth asking yourself who you think Pep Guardiola, or most managers for that matter, would rather have in their squads. I don't think that proves that Kane is currently better. I think that it is up for debate, but anyone who suggests that it isn't a close contest is only deceiving themselves. Top. Manchester City. Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne might not be the best paid individual at Manchester City, that title belongs to Pep Guardiola, but he is their best paid player, having negotiated a lucrative new deal for himself using analysts, rather than an agent, to prove his worth to the club back in April of this year. I'm not sure that any of us, least of all those at Manchester City, ought to have needed an analyst to point out De Bruyne's importance to the club, with the Belgian having arguably been the best midfielder in all of world football for the last 3 years. A bit like Harry Kane, De Bruyne has endured a slow start to the current season after returning from an injury setback, and just as he looked to be finding his form over the international break with an impressive performance against Wales, he has been ruled out for 10 days after testing positive for COVID-19. An incredibly complete midfielder, De Bruyne has a first-class understanding of the game, he has the lungs to get him up and down the pitch, and his vision and range of passing in the final third are probably second only to Lionel Messi's in all of world football. All things considered, as far as I'm concerned, he is still one of the 2 best players in the Premier League, along with Mohamed Salah, and the best to be his club's highest earner. Now that is it for today's video. Before I leave you, just an apology for my voice, if that has been noticeable, which I imagine it has. I have been a little unwell, which is also why there have been slightly fewer videos in recent weeks. Hopefully I am on the mend now. It's nothing serious, I hope. Thank you all as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, despite my voice. And that goes generally even when I'm perfectly well. Leave a comment if you've anything interesting to say, or even something deeply uninteresting like this ending monologue. And make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on, of course, to the sick man of YouTube, HITC Sevens. You can also find me over on Twitter or on Instagram by the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.